Today, we are going to delve into the pros and cons of having your own garden. And this might seem like an abstract question to pose or subject to analyze, but like taking in a pet, a garden is a huge responsibility that revolves around the survival of living organisms. And for that reason, I believe that it is totally worth setting aside a few minutes just to analyze whether or not this is actually for you. But before we get into it, please click that subscribe button. It is my dream to hit 1,000 subscribers. We're over 700 right now, so we're quite close. And with your subscription, it can help us move forward on a path of building this beautiful community of people who really unite to discuss not only how to have a garden, but the culture of gardening. Let's get into it. So, I'm going to go through these pros and cons and kind of give my 2 cents. You might have a thought that's completely in conflict with my take, and if that's the case, please leave a comment below and I will try to address as many comments as possible. And hopefully, we'll find a consensus that way. So, let's start off with the pros. I'm a glass is half full kind of guy, so I think that's the right way to start. Generally, having a garden is an amazing thing. So, I don't really want you to focus on the cons, but let's have a look at the pros. So, gardening is fun. Now, I'm going to go out straight and say it. Gardening is fun the same way that going to the gym is fun, the same way that washing your car is fun. See, there's an inherent reward in the activity, much deeper than the reward of, for example, eating junk food that is pleasurable in the moment, but maybe not so nice when you finish. Gardening is hard work, intensive, time consuming work. When you're out there on a summer day where the thermometer is above 80 degrees, maybe it's a little bit humid, fun might not be the first word that comes to mind. That being said, the result, eating organic fruit, the fresh, beautiful smell of your plants, and the satisfaction that this nature was crafted by your own 2 hands is so rewarding that, yeah, you might call it fun. So, in general, I would agree with that sentiment, but I would caution you as to not expect it to be the same kind of fun as going to an amusement park or something along those lines. All right, it's embellishment of your home. Yeah, I would agree with that actually. It really is a way to emphasize the essence of home, in fact. Nowadays, especially for the children who are so consumed in electronic and don't spend the same time wandering around unsupervised as we used to when we were kids, doing something like gardening together as a family can really give your house the essence of a home. This is the type of thing that even if children complain about doing in the process, they will certainly look back and thank you for it later for giving them a home. And hence, setting a fantastic example for the generations to follow. Who knows? Maybe 500 years from now, people in your bloodline will be gardening because of an example that you set. I would say this is a pro, this is a reason to start doing it now. Growing your own organic food. This is a good one. I think this is a very obvious one. Organic food, there are two problems with it in general when you purchase it. One is that almost regardless of where you purchase organic food, price tag is going to be hefty. And that is because it is a commodity product. And as is the case with any product, you have to ask yourself when you're in the supermarket, how much of the organic value of the food is actually just packaged in the marketing, and how much of the food is actually of the quality of being organic. And there are many different ways that companies claim they're able to prove that, in fact, you're getting an organic product. But the only way that you'd ever ensure it for sure to know that what you're eating is pure, healthy, without any toxins, without any pesticides, is if you grow it inside of your own garden. So I would agree this is totally a pro. Saving money in the long run. Now, to be honest with you, if you would put the time into work that you might otherwise spend in the hobby or passion of gardening, you probably earn enough money to buy all the organic food that your heart desires, certainly more than what would be inside of your garden. But again, that loops us back around to the question, what is organic and what is a true source of organic food? So I think even if you were working in a fast food restaurant consistently, you'd be able to finance the purchase of food, even in the long run, for the same time, if not more, as compared to when you are working the garden. You know, gardening, first of all, the thought process, you have to figure out what you're going to plant. You have to research how to do it. The planting part is very time consuming, especially depending on how sizable your garden is. But then the maintenance of that garden, pulling the weeds, watering it, if it rains too much, trying to, and this is a tricky thing that more experts do, uh, remove excess water from your garden. I mean, there are many facets. I wouldn't say gardening is a hobby to save money by any measure, you know, unless you're living out on a farm and it's literally all that you do with your life. So I don't really agree with that one. Maybe you have a different opinion. Education for your children. Totally. This is priceless. And not only is it an education for your children, but it provides a meaningful bridge for bonding. There's something just so primitive and beautiful about digging with your hands into the soil, into the ground, into the earth. This of which we've arisen. So definitely, it is an absolutely true point. Improvement in the understanding of nature. There is a lot that goes on in gardening. One of the less pleasant things that people maybe don't discuss that much are the animals that you'd normally find to be quite cute, like rabbit or deer, are a pest, in fact, and they are harmful to the efforts of your gardening. So it puts you into a place of nature where the perspective is quite different. Suddenly it becomes, wow, that bunny rabbit's not so cute at all because if it had its way, I'd have nothing left in my garden. So, very true. Reduction of mental health issues. Now, I don't know any people with mental health issues who use gardening, and therefore I can't really comment as to whether or not this is proven. But what I can say is that when it comes to digital poisoning, you know, all the time we spend on our computers, all the time that we spend on smartphones, gardening would remove you from that environment. And if you consider being, you know, so glued into the computer as an issue of mental health, then I would say that certainly gardening can help restore your mental health. Releasing stress. I don't know. Gardening can be a source of stress for some people. It can be a release of stress for other people. So that depends on the individual. Focusing on yourself. That's a weird pro. I mean, I don't know a lot of narcissistic gardeners, to be honest with you. Most of the gardeners that I know love to share the produce that they grow. That's one of the biggest rewards, you know, giving someone something that's grown from your garden and then later having them comment on how wonderful and amazing it is. I'll tell you a story. My wife is from Poland, and I visited her family many years ago. They're from the Deep Village, and they cooked a simple meal of potatoes with forest mushrooms. And to this day, I'll never forget the feeling of having eaten my first real potato because all the potatoes that I had had up to that point were from a shop. I never had one that was planted in someone's backyard garden. And this completely changed my outlook on food in general. You know, maybe you've been to Jamaica and you tried a banana there or a mango, for example, when you were in a tropical place. You said, whoa, This is completely different than what they would have you think is this food item that you purchase from the store. That kind of supports my argument on the organic food point. It's very, very subjective, in fact, when you add marketing to the mix. And for that reason, I think that focusing on yourself is no reason to garden at all. If you're narcissistic, you should get an Instagram account and take photos of yourself, maybe. But gardening, I think, is more to share the love, it's more to share food and to be one with nature. Nature doesn't really like narcissism, as far as I can tell. Okay, your gardening could replace going on vacation. Well, again, I love gardening, but I would not agree with that as a pro. In fact, having a garden might prevent you from going on vacation because if you neglect it, fail to water it over a dry spell, and you're on vacation, even just for like a weekend, you might come back to find some disheveled crops. So I don't know what this one's about. I just reject it. I don't agree with that. A physical workout, absolutely. Especially when it comes to rototilling the dirt in the beginning of the gardening season, or when you are changing a lawn bed into a plant garden. That is huge work. You will feel it. You'll lose weight. Fantastic. Agree. Gardening may improve our immune system. Well, I'm no doctor, but I do presume that being outdoors, having fresh food that's organic, provenly organic, and getting in a good workout would improve your immune system. So, I that sounds true. That sounds like something I could go with. Nice contract for people working in an office job. Absolutely. Office jobs are miserable. Being in the garden is great by comparison, so I'd agree with that one. It can improve our ecological footprint. That really depends on a few factors. How are you planting? How are you maintaining your garden? Are you using gas driven or even electronic equipment to prepare this garden? How many trips to the shop did you take to buy tools, to buy seeds, so on and so forth? Do you use chemicals to prevent insects from eating your garden? This one, I'm not too sure about, but on paper, it sounds like it would be. And improvement in health levels. Yeah, sure. Why not? Now let's go over to the cons, the glass half empty outlook. Having a garden is a significant initial cost. Assuming that you have a plot of land, assuming that you have two hands and a shovel, I totally dismiss this. Again, you have to take into account marketing. People whose entire job is to convince you that you have a need for something that's totally useless. Let me give you a parallel example. Recently, we got a cat. I went to the pet store to get a litter box and litter. I ended up leaving with a glove that had a kind of brush on it with various cat toys that were electronic and moved. I was amazed to find out that the brush was useless. Basically, you were better off to use a real brush. The cat did not like chasing around electronic toys. It preferred just chasing around a string. And I think gardening has many of the same pitfalls if it comes to what you actually need and what you're told that you need. So I would just simplify. Buy a good shovel that might be expensive depending on what your, you know, household income is, but I think most people could afford to buy a shovel if they put their mind to it, and some seeds and a little bit of water. Not very expensive. I don't agree with that con. Significant maintenance costs. Again, are you hiring a gardener? Are you calculating the time that you spend in your garden as to time that you could be earning in an hourly job that you would otherwise do? Maybe that would be maintenance costs. But if you use your two hands and the shovel I told you about, then it doesn't really cost that much to maintain at all. Confined space at home. If you have a small yard and there's not room for a garden, you've got people who want to run around and utilize the yard for activities, yes, that could definitely be a con worth considering, especially when you factor in for the fact that gardens are seasonal. So, for a good portion of the year, it just sits there looking ugly. You may be afraid to make mistakes. I don't think that that is a con in and of itself. I think that people should rise up to the challenge of decision making and do it. The worst that's going to happen is your crop won't come in, you'll learn something, and the next year you might prevail. Gardening may interfere with local laws. All right, I actually have a video about this. It was a little bit of a rant, but I have some ornamental grass that violates the zoning of my neighborhood, and I've got a conflict with my neighbors over that grass, despite the fact that the grass is actually very beautiful. So, yeah, if you don't do research, your garden may in fact violate laws that you would not have even imagined existed. But again, I wouldn't say that this is a con of gardening. I would say that this is a con of governing. So, or being governed, I should say. Physical effort can be exhausting. Well, if you go back over to the pros in the reduction of mental health issues, I would argue, and again, I could be wrong, that exhausting yourself physically as opposed to sitting in front of a computer all day with no movement and just turning into a vegetable, that's more exhausting. So, what do you want to do? Plant vegetables or be a vegetable? Your choice. Minor wounds are rather common. That's very, very true. Actually, in the beginning of the spring, when people clean their gardens, there are many cases of tetanus. Well, as compared to other parts of the year, anyhow, and that's because people are cleaning out their garden and there happens to be a lot of rusty elements lingering around. They scratch themselves on it. So, if you look up some medical graphs, you'll see that the time that people get vaccinated against tetanus spiking in the spring for that particular reason. Okay? Requires plenty of time. Yes. That is certainly a con of gardening. You will honestly be working on it day and night, mornings as well. And if it's not a pleasure for you, then this con will be major because it's a huge commitment. You have to monitor your plans frequently. I could apply what I said to the above factor. If you enjoy it, then that will be a pleasure. If you don't enjoy it, it's going to be a nightmare. Selection of suitable plants can be difficult. Well, I don't. I'm starting to think that a complete sissy made this list because, like, a con being that you have to choose what plants. That's the most fun part of gardening, I think, altogether is choosing what goes in. Do you want pumpkins? Do you want to plant chamomile? Like, yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I think that is a really fun part of it. Hot peppers, for example. Some plants are quite sensitive. This is really, really true. Sometimes it's very surprising when you plant a plant that you would expect to be quite easy to take, and it ends up being high maintenance and maybe doesn't prevail. So that is true. That's a little bit of a con. Significant crop loss for beginners. Yeah, that's totally true. But don't get discouraged because year after year it'll get better. I'd advise you to make friends with someone who is uh, good at gardening and someone who enjoys it because they'll be happy to give you tips and do a little hand holding in the beginning. You may find solutions for your vacation trip. You may have to find solutions for your vacation trip. Exactly. That is a huge con. It's like having an animal, it's like getting a pet. Suddenly, your freedom diminishes in a major way. Illegal plants may cause you serious trouble. Well, that's assuming that you're stupid enough to break the law in the first place. So, guys, these are the pros and cons of gardening. I hope you enjoyed that video. I certainly enjoyed going through the list myself. I didn't necessarily agree with all of it, but at the same time, I think that it provided a good foundation for things to consider before you make the investment and the commitment to taking care of such a wonderful place that's going to not only enhance the beauty of your yard, but enhance the health of your life by giving you and your loved ones delicious food. That's the video for today. Please subscribe to Great Gardening. Leave me a comment, thumbs up, and I look forward to catching up with you guys next time.